Not hearing.
Yeah, I think Commander Paschal is the only committee member I don't see listed here. That said, I think if it's all right with everyone, I'll call the meeting to order here. And I guess we'll do the same process as we did last time, if you don't mind, is that we'll go ahead and do a verbal attendance to make sure basically that everybody's audio works as well. So I'll just follow the list alphabetically. So first off, Chief Doug Evilpop.
Here.
All right, Chief Dennis Jones, Andor Fire.
Here.
All right, Chief Jeff Caters, Ramsey PD.
Here.
Let's see, Commander Paschal is there. All right, Anoka County Attorney Tony Palumbo.
I'm here.
Mayor Tom Ryan.
Here.
Anoka County Commissioner Scott Schulte.
Here.
Scott, your audio was bad. I didn't quite hear that. Did you say here?
Here. Can you hear me now?
Yep. All right, that was good. Central Common Val.
I'm here.
Mayor Trude.
Here.
And of course me. And then I'll just ask if you're able to mute your volume if you're not speaking, that'd be great. We had a little bit of feedback, but I think we'll be all right. All right, so first order of business is approval of the meeting minutes, and I know they had been sent out from July 8th, so I'll be looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Palumbo.
I'll second. Schulte, second.
Second by Schulte. And, oh, actually, we didn't discuss this, Tony, in advance. Are we going to do one of those votes online, or will we do it like oral approval, or how do we
Chief,
do that?
I think we can just do it orally at this point. You probably ask if there are any, well, when you ask for the no votes.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so there's a motion and a second. I don't know, all those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed, no.
Okay.
All right, minutes are approved. All right, on to item number 2, subcommittee report. The first item is listed as budget committee. The project status is, as you all know, it isn't much of a conversation anymore because we're basically at the final system acceptance. Still, I know Manager Jensen will provide some update because we are getting close to that final system acceptance for Central Squared. We'll just talk about that when we get to the his PSDS update and review, because there are some, it's just talking about how some of the unspent money, or how the store credit, I guess is the term we've been using, how that store credit has been utilized so far, and maybe what how the store credit can be used in the future. I guess quasi-related, George, the item number 2 under budget, next payments. Did you want to comment here about that, or do you want to just wait for the update or review?
Oh, we can cover it here. Let me just make sure I'm talking from my notes. So yeah, we're waiting on one more item. Really, at the end of the day, we're waiting on one item. But in order to get to that item, and that item is NCIC queries out of FBR. But in order to get there, there's a couple of steps that have to take place, and we're just not, there's just no movement. Well, they started movement on it earlier in the summer, and then I think they did the final install of SIM, which is, let me get my notes in a better spot here. common identity management. So one user, one login across the entire system. We need that in place before they can do the install of the NCIC queries in FBR. So some progress has been made. I think SIM is installed now. We just need the training. Britta and I need the training on how to operate with it. It's installed in training. We need to operate with it, make sure it doesn't mess everything up, and then we'll move it to production, which will move us to the next step. So we're just waiting on that one piece to get done, and then we'll be able to sign off on the project.
All right, does anybody have any questions related? All right, good. And I think one of our guests here, Corey Kampf, will provide the financial status report. Corey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Excellent. Yes, I can.
All right. So as you have in the packet, or what came out extra from Doreen today, is this is through third quarter as of September 20th, September 30th of 2020. We have received all our revenue. Revenue is totally in the 1.4 million. When we look at expenditures, we're probably running a month or so behind on billing. And so even though it looks like our administrative support is coming in under budget, I believe it will come in a little bit under budget. We'll probably be in the 80 to 90% overall spending our budget. Part of that is trainings and meetings are obviously going to come in lower due to the fact that we couldn't go to conferences and things were changed and canceled and most things went online. But also we're tracking a little bit under. We are tracking pretty much on budget when it comes to the system maintenance and support. We've got about 27% left to spend. We've spent about 890,000 of the 1.1 million. So we will come in pretty close. So I expect us overall to come in under budget, probably in that 5 to 10% range, like that, which will help us going forward as we look further into the need for revenue or changes in the future. So any questions on the financial scenario?
I do, Mr. Chair. Corey, so that $1,068,000 estimated fund balance for the 2020 actual, you think is actually going to decrease?
Yeah. The budget had planned on 575,000 being our ending fund balance. I think we're probably going to be somewhere around 650,000, maybe 700,000 at the end of the year.
Okay.
For fund balance. So it'll be a little bit, it won't be quite what we had projected. It'll be better than what we had projected, but not quite the $1,068,000. That's just right now because we're only through third quarter. So.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Corey before he signs off on that topic, I guess? All right, doesn't seem to be any questions related to the financial status report. So moving on to item B then, data standards, Chief Caters.
Thank you, Chief. The data standards group met this morning. We had one item on our agenda. I think we had an addition and we talked about a couple other things, but that one item was related to single names within our system. So I know Britta used the example of Cher or Prince, I think, are those people who go by one name. How is our system going to handle that, or what is the proper way of doing so when we have our staff enter these into our system? I think we came up with an answer, which is just using the last name only field. We'll update the manual, or Britta has already updated the manual. So we have a reference point for all of our users to go to should they have these questions about how to enter data. It's critically important that we have these data standards so that we have multiple systems as part of this PSDS, and we need to have some type of standard to make sure that we can talk amongst those systems and operate efficiently. I think we're getting there, and we continually strive to make sure that we try and reach that standard of interoperability. There's certainly plenty of examples where even within like the state systems, they don't talk to one another, or their standards are all different. We understand that is beneficial for us to make sure that we can operate that way and have those systems talk to one another if it's within our purview to change those. And then we also ended our discussion this morning talking about the position that we're in as a county, and then with our 911 system. I don't want to take away from what Val might talk about, but recently there was a news story about the failure of some of the 911 systems, and Val talked about that. You know, how residents of Anoka County were in a better position because of the 911 system that we have. And I'll let her talk a little bit more about that, but this is exactly why we do this. So I think that is important to know. And that's it for my report.
All right, thank you, Chief Taters. I'm assuming, yes, and there's a section in the agenda that's for Central Com, and I'm sure Val will update us then on all the issues that she has in front of her. So on to item number 3, contract services and change orders. George.
Yes, so we have the Wyman LLC contract. It's voted on to have a not to exceed contract of $10,000 per year. She ran out of that beginning of with the August invoice. She ran out of 10,000. So what that means is there's lots of the agencies are reaching out to her to help maintain that legacy RMS system. That's what she's taken on for us. Reminder that, you know, the legacy RMS system is the antiquated system that we had prior to 2015, November 2015. Not a lot of people in the county still know how to use it. Jolene has remained proficient in using it. And so she's the go-to for most agencies on keeping that data managed, which is important to the county and some of our other subsystems. So I met with all the CLEOs at a luncheon back on September 16th, and I asked if it would be okay for Jolene to continue working under the concept that I will use some money out of some of those unused accounts like GIS. There's $40,000 I think I've spent less than 3,000 of the GIS money because of COVID. The vendor isn't coming in. So I'm asking, I asked him if it was all right if I basically take GIS money to help keep Jolene working. And then I told him I would come to the group again and ask to raise her contract up another $5,000. So she has plenty of funds for the rest of the year and then 2021. Reminder that we're going to keep browser or the legacy RMS system up and running until November of 2022. So we have just over 2 years left on it, and she's contracted with us to do that. So what I guess I'm asking is I'd like the permission to arrange her contract from a not to exceed of $10,000 to a not to exceed of $15,000.
And I'll say for the rest of the members of the committee, just to weigh in on that, as one of the chiefs is that the legacy records is very important to us, and having access to the records and them being up to date and maintained is critical. And if some more time is needed from her, I'm sure all the record supervisors for all the agencies would concur that Jolene provides an invaluable service. So in other words, my opinion is that would be a good expense and a good move for 2021. And if somebody else, unless somebody else has something they want to weigh in on related to it, we could take a motion, I would think.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a couple of questions. How long will the 5,000 last, George, given her present?
Well, she used $8,000 or $10,000 in 8 months. So our figuring it out averages that we think $5,000 will cover for the remaining 4 months.
And we anticipate going into 2021 with this also, correct, George?
Yeah, I think all I'm going to do is I'm not going to ask for any more money. I'm just going to rearrange pockets. So great example is the GIS account.
Sure.
There's 40 grand sitting there. We've never used all 40 grand. So there's a pocket that I think I did lower it down for the 2021 budget, but I still think there's money sitting there that we can use. Just one example of a place where I might be able to pull some money and just kind of balance the checkbook a little bit there.
Yeah, so you're anticipating where I'm going with this. Should we make it up to 20, or do you think 15's enough?
I think 15's enough. If you look at the averages of how she's operating, she hasn't gone over 1,200 pretty much yet.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion then to amend the agreement with Jolene Wyman to reflect a $15,000 not to exceed price. I'm assuming there is no term in terms of time that needs to be changed, right?
All right, is it just me, or did that cut out some?
Oh, did you hear my motion, Mr. Chair?
If you wouldn't mind doing it again, Tony, that'd be great. I'm going to mute myself. It might be me, I'm not certain.
Okay. I will make the motion. I'm sorry? I will make the motion to amend the contract with Jolene Wyman to reflect a $15,000 not to exceed price.
Second, Schulte.
Okay. My only question, George, is there a time limit on this contract? Do we have to amend that also? Or is it an open time limit?
I would bow to Catherine Tim on that.
Kathy, do you know?
I don't have the contract in front of me, and I wasn't aware that this was going to be on. I apologize. So I have two questions actually for George, and I'll clear that up later. One is whether or not we need to amend the time, and the second is whether or not this is a financial amendment or a legal amendment as to the dollar amount. Most of these contracts I have done so that we can amend the money without making it a legal amendment, but the date would have to be a legal amendment if that has to be done. But I don't have the document in front of me. I don't remember.
Well, Mr. Chair, then I think my motion would give authority, because this will have to be obviously ratified by the full joint law. So between now and the joint law, maybe we'll have those questions cleared up. But it would still be the intent of my motion to recommend to the Joint Law Enforcement Council that we amend the contract. And if for any particular reason Kathy Tim feels that it doesn't need to go through it because of what you've called a financial amendment, then I don't have to make that motion at the joint law, or no one else has to. So how about if we treat it that way procedurally? Fair enough. Kathy, does that comport with your understanding? Mr. Chair and George?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay, Mr. Chair and George, are you in agreement with that also?
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion by Palumbo, a second by Schulte. Is there any further discussion? And I'll just note that Jolene Wyman is paid at a rate of $75 per hour, which is a reasonable dollar amount. So are there any other comments then? All right, hearing nothing further, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And those opposed to the motion, no. All right, the motion carries for that recommendation. All right, George, is there anything else under contract, services, or change orders?
Mr. Chair, no.
All right, and then transition right into item number 4, then the PSDS update review. That document was sent out, dated October 13th for the governance committee. George, is there anything you wanted to highlight, the changes on it especially?
No, it's pretty much steady state stuff at this point. You know, if you have any questions on the details, just don't hesitate to ever call. The one thing I did forget to mention in there is that Britta and myself are looking into the possibility of hiring some interns from St. Olaf College to come help us do some data cleansing that Chief Caters had mentioned earlier. We believe that we can, we get them for about a month period of time. We do a full background on them, make sure they're all legal and all that. Get them lined up. Britta would be in charge of them, and we do a mass attempt to get some of our records, a master records under control again. And then after that, our plan is to build some reporting that if an agency does accidentally put in a duplicate master record, that we can ask them to go fix it nicely through an email or whatever. But so kind of highlight, try to do some reporting that finds those duplicates and finds the last person to enter it and ask them to go update the database is kind of our thought. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that we're doing that. I'll add that to the JLEC version of the PSDS update. But other than that, if there's
George,
any questions for the update?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question just quickly on that, George? Are you going to are these going to be externs? Are they going to be paid? Are they going to be temporary employees? Do you know?
As far as I know, what we understand from the agreement or we haven't really signed anything on it, but what we're looking into is their volunteer. Their time is,
okay.
They ask for a position to do this kind of work, but we don't pay them.
Okay, I'm just concerned that it would be the city of Fridley to have to hire them, and then we would reimburse them if they were going to be temporary employees. But you're saying they will not be; they will be volunteers, correct?
Correct.
Right. Thanks.
And if that changes, we'll stop and renegotiate and figure this thing out. But right now, from what we understand, they are volunteers.
All right. Thank you.
All right, I think, well, actually, one other thing I guess I'd like to highlight too is that as of October 1st, Britta Maddox transitioned into full-time law RMS, so she is 100% now paid for by Joint Law Enforcement Council. And I know some people at least expressed concern for Coon Rapids is that we were able to find what I think is going to be a good replacement for the 8 hours a week that Britta gave us, which will enhance Coon Rapids' ability to integrate with the JLEC and the PSDS system overall. But did anybody else have any questions they wanted to ask George before we move on to Central Com? All right, so let's go on to Central Com then, Val.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a lot of stuff going on down here, so I'll run through my list and then just break for any questions at the end if that's okay. Okay, so first we have hired a new radio system coordinator. His name is Corey DeMuth. He has 26 years of experience in the military communications, so he's very well versed in radios. Some of you have met him. He came to the chief's lunch. His plan was to go to fire protection, but that was canceled. So he is available if you have questions or you need help. On October 7th, we updated CAD we skipped a bunch of versions and we went to a 20.3.3.1. The main reason we made that big jump was for field ops. This version works with field ops. We're still doing testing on that, but we're hoping to get that and have it be more steady and actually work for us. This version also has a new mapping tool. It's called Real-Time 100, and it's a faster mapping speed to allow the dispatchers to see the responders in a more timely manner and where they are, so we can update callers on high priority events. We also started work last week on our ASAP to PSAP, which it's like a CAD to CAD with an alarm company. It stands for Automated Secure Alarm Protocol. So it'll save time with the alarm companies. Instead of having to call us, give us the information, they can enter it into their CAD and it'll pop up into our pending screen. And then we'll be able to dispatch everything in a more timely manner. So we just started work on that, the preliminary work, I think about 2 weeks ago. So Kevin McNally, Carrie, and I are spearheading that along with some support from George as needed. We had a meeting last week with Jason and a few of us from here to try to work on the interface between FDM and CAD. We've been having some issues with addressing and some things that get pushed out through FDM then break some parts of CAD. So we're making great progress on that. We had a really good meeting last week on that. With all of our CARES money, we have buying a bunch of equipment. We are putting 5 new dispatch consoles in our training room. Our intent with that is to close down the dispatchers we have out at the alternate. Every time there's a Zayo outage or a network problem out there, it affects the dispatch center. So we're trying to get them back here. Technically kind of under one roof, but they will be in the training room. But we've bought new console furnitures, radios, phones, and then we're also buying the new chairs. We've bought the dispatchers their own keyboards and their own cords for them plugging in, so they're not unplugging from a cord and plugging, somebody else is plugging in right behind them. Let's see here. We've also are in the process of working with HipLink. HipLink is a integration, it'll integrate into our iPause, which is our alerting system. So it'll streamline the process, make it easier for us to get it out in a timely manner. We could use it for, like if there was COVID things like a testing facility that was open or a vaccine place that was open, we could use it for that too, as well as other law enforcement. It would have been great to have in place the night we had the 911 phone outage, but hopefully that'll come in the next month or so. We also bought a Seek scan body temperature scanning thing for the dispatchers to come in, where we've been really lucky. We've had none of our dispatchers test positive. So we want to keep that up. We do not need to infect the dispatch center. So this will allow the dispatchers to just walk in, walk by this temperature scan, and then a lead on duty can make sure that they don't have a temperature before they sit down. We have also bought some laptop radios, which we can use for offsite dispatching. If we needed to evacuate our center for a cleansing, we could go to any facility and dispatch out of there, or we could use them like out at the PGA tournament. And then the last thing that we've purchased is it's called APCO IntelliCard, and it's an interface to CAD, which will streamline our questioning. My goal is to have a caller, when they call in here, not to know if they're talking to somebody that's been here 2 months or 20 years. We'd like to streamline the questions, make sure everybody's asking the same questions, getting the same information. And it's kind of an in-house QA too that we can use to make sure that we're following all of our procedures. Then the last thing I just want to touch on is the phone, the 911 outage. So that was on the night of September 28th. It was 14 states that lost all 911. Intrado has kind of taken responsibility for this, saying they had a tech doing work he should not have been doing. We had 79 calls that came into our center. It was out for about an hour and 10 minutes. We had 79 calls that came in that couldn't get delivered to us, but using our rapid SOS jurisdiction view, we're able to see the calls coming in, and then it'll show that they were not delivered to us. So we had one dispatcher that just sat and called back all those callers to make sure that we did not miss anything. We are only, us and Washington County are the only 2 dispatch centers in the metro that have this. So that was really lucky for us that we were able to do that. Minneapolis, Hennepin, and Ramsey are going through turmoil now from this 911 calls, and people that were trying to get through for emergencies that could not, and they didn't have any way to get back to them. So that was a great thing to have that night for the outage. And I think that's all I have. Anybody has any questions?
All right, sounds like I'm not hearing any questions. Thank you for the update, Val. We're going to move on to item number 6 then, the Fire Protection Council. Before I turn it over to Chief Jones for an update on what happened at their last meeting, as you recall, we had a conversation at the last Joint Law Enforcement Council meeting about the Assistant Fire Chief from Columbia Heights, Dan O'Brien, being added as an alternate to represent the Joint Law Enforcement Council at the LOGIS board meeting. It's a lot of acronyms. That said, is that the requirement from LOGIS was that they receive a letter from the chair, Tony Palumbo, stating the request to add Dan O'Brien as an alternate. Well, that letter was sent. Dan was added as an alternate, and he did receive an invite to the electronic meeting with voting privileges, and that meeting takes place on October 22nd. So I guess it would be next Thursday. And so we do have an alternate as a representative on the LOGIS board. While most of the activities of the LOGIS board tend to be by consensus, it's not very often there's a contentious vote regarding what data systems or management of LOGIS ought to be. That said, it's important that the Joint Law Enforcement Council be represented to provide a voice in the event that something does go askew of what we would have as our goals. And for those of you who didn't know, Chris Olson, just to remind people, I guess, that Chris Olson, beloved chair of the governance committee in years gone by, works for LOGIS, and he's still the law contact. And it's great for us to have that voice as an employee of LOGIS. So with that, Chief Jones, if you want to provide an update then on what happened at the last Fire Protection Council meeting, or what may come up in the next one.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what will be coming up, as our last meeting was indeed canceled. So Chief Piper has been sending out emails updating us on various activities, such as Andover took possession of the fire investigation team trailer. But as far as anything to do with communications, I have not been aware of any other activities that the Fire Protection Council has been working on. So like I said, the last meeting that we had scheduled was indeed canceled. So sorry, that's not much help.
Well, no, actually, no news is good news as far as we're concerned, I think. So,
Okay.
So with that, actually, I'm not even sure, item number 7, alibis or alibis?
Alibis.
What is that?
Alibis are for anything anybody can think of at the end there. That was my addition to the, come on, you approved it.
That's a good point. I don't know. I was thinking it was a new software system called Alibis or Alibis, but all right. So I guess the other topics moving forward for governance. I guess maybe the only thing I would say is that given this COVID situation doesn't appear to be going anywhere, I would assume that we probably should just assume that all meetings moving forward will be electronic until further notice. We used to have sort of the reverse view that we thought we would be meeting in person, and plan B was to have a WebEx meeting, but I think that's probably exactly backwards, is that until further notice, I think we probably should expect to have meetings like this. But it will be nice to one day get in the room with all of you at some point or another. Does somebody else have something they wish to add then for this meeting?
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to ask Doreen, have you got everything you needed in terms of attendance for this meeting?
The only thing I noticed was that Kathy Tim's name wasn't mentioned, and Dee Guthman signed on late. So I'll just add those to the attendance.
Okay. Just for purposes of the minutes is all.
Got it.
All right, is there anybody else who wasn't mentioned who is attending that I don't see on my list? All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a couple more things that came up between the time the agenda was put out and today's meeting. I want to be putting out an email to gather interest on two items. One's called Track's Cell Phone Investigation Solution. This is a tool that's created that assists law enforcement agencies in creating accurate warrants for cell phones using up-to-date templates that the company provides. And then each of the templates are specifically built to meet the requirements of cell phone companies, the individual cell phone companies. The city of Fridley stated that this part of that system saves just countless number of hours because they're actually filling out a more accurate warrant request. The other things that tool does is it takes that data from the warrant. It provides them a place to upload it to this tool on the web and do some tracking of the cell phone for the period of time of the warrant, and provides them analytical information about the use of that cell phone, where it's been, even currently, it can tell them exactly where it is right now. So I'm going to put out a request from the different CLEOs involved in the JLEC and see if there's any interest in pursuing this. It's quite a bit of contract. If everybody was to buy it individually, the average cost would be $2,300 per agency. We can get that down to $1,300 per agency if we buy it as a consortium. The other thing is, been hearing quite a bit that officers are still interested in maybe going back to APS as a ticket writer. I'm going to put that in that email to the CLEOs also to see if we want to try to go back to APS. APS is now owned by Central Square, and they have melded what APS provides to the officer in citation writing in heavily with FBR. So we were wondering if there's any interest from the agencies to go back and talk to Central Square about possibly renewing contracts with them. So those are the two things I'm going to put out there on a vote for the CLEOs to tell me what they want to do. Just wanted to mention that, so it's no surprise if I bring it up during the JLEC.
All right, thank you, George. Yeah, there's an upcoming Chief Law Enforcement Officer meeting before the next JLEC meeting, so it'll be ample opportunity to have those discussions with a vision and eye on the future. And I don't think anybody else had anything to mention, so it looks like we're talking about upcoming meetings.
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Chair, Scott Schulte here.
Yes.
Just a quick question for George on that Trax phone software. I read currently that 3, I think, departments, maybe 4 are using it. Fridley's in a trial basis, if I read it correctly. My only question or concern going forward is it going to be on a per agency basis that they pay for it, even though you're a consortium buying the product? It's not going to go through the super formula through JLEC or anything like that?
Well, that would be a part of the question. How do they want to do it? They did break out the pricing by agency based on sworn officers, so we could do it that way.
Okay. I would just follow up that my concern would be that if it went through the super formula, Anoka County would be paying 66% of that. And the sheriff's office already has it and is willing to do it for every agency. I talked to him today about it, and he says, no, we absolutely offer that service to any municipal police officer, police department in Anoka County, and we have trained people in using that system. So I'm fine with if the departments want to subscribe to it individually or as a consortium, as long as it doesn't go through the super formula, then I'd be fine with it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Sheriff Stewart will bring that up at the next Chiefs luncheon as an option. And I'll just tell you that software was absolutely vital in making a safe arrest of a very violent suspect related to a Coon Rapids incident. So the worth of the software really isn't in question. It's very important. So, like, for instance, I'll just give you a short story. Is that we were looking for a particular person, and we were able to time his arrest in or at a place where there was least likely to be a violent encounter. So it's not hard to see that if the officers in the cell phone can make their way to the same point in time at a time that the officers want that to happen, that the chances of a bad encounter go down. So it's worth really isn't the question for any law enforcement agency. So A good point, and Sheriff Stewart, I'm sure will bring that up. So the next JLEC meeting, then October 28th, ostensibly at Blaine PD or online via WebEx. I'm going to guess that it's mostly WebEx, but who knows? Tony, can you weigh in on that, on whether people actually attend at all, or?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I think it's going to be WebEx, given the present situation, just as you stated earlier. We're presuming it's WebEx unless otherwise notified. I think we actually asked Fridley to be the standby at this point, and they agreed to do it, but it just looks like we're going to continue using WebEx.
All right, thank you. And then otherwise, the next JLEC meeting will be in January at ACSO. I think the calendar would suggest it's January 27th is the next JLEC meeting, and that consequently then our next governance committee meeting should be January 13th or 2 weeks prior. And that would be via WebEx unless otherwise noted. Is there any issues that I'm not aware of regarding either of those dates, either the JLEC or governance?
None that I see, Mr. Chair.
All right, sounds good. So I think we're ready to wrap up this meeting here in 41 minutes. That's pretty good. So with that, then I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Is there a
Made
second?
the motion.
Palumbo made the motion.
Schulte.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Schulte made the second, and then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.